Hello, everyone. It's July 6th, Monday. I'm, I hate like crazy to start off with this, but we have our 94th and 95th death. Both of them, one was an 89-year-old female, another 84-year-old female, both from Greenbrier County, and both associated with the outbreak at the church. If you'll remember, and I hope and prayed that this wouldn't be the case, but now we've lost several, and at that church. And if you'll remember correctly, we surely had them all in our hopes and our prayers. And we know that maybe we didn't do the right things from the standpoint of the social distancing or the mask or whatever that was going on within the church. And I hate the outcome. I said when I first heard of this that it would be a miracle if we didn't lose somebody. Well, we've lost multiples, and that's not good. And so please keep all these people in your prayers, and remember all the greatness that they brought to our great state, and in every way. So I hate it, and I hate it terrible to start off with this. Now, I promised you the other day, the last day I was with you was on Thursday. And I promised you that day that I would make a decision in regard to wearing masks in buildings outside of your home. I absolutely felt like at that time that it was the right thing to do. I have watched your numbers every day. I know it's not the popular thing to do, but as far as wearing some level of face covering, it doesn't have to be a mask that you purchase or whatever, but a face covering. Absolutely, it is, at this point in time, in my opinion, the only thing we can do, the only smart thing to do. You see, I know it's not going to be popular, but you didn't elect me to do popular things. You elected me to try to pull West Virginia out of the dire straits that we were in economically. You didn't really anticipate in any way that we would have a worldwide pandemic, and surely neither did I. But we do have it. And we have navigated our way through this to date, and we have done so in a way that has protected you, and you have shown the world just how good you really are. Now, I have a wealth of experts all around me. The number one expert that I have around me is our coronavirus czar, in Dr. Clay Marsh. And you'll hear from him in a few minutes, but you'll hear a man that is absolutely, without question, committed to the fact that we have got to go to a mandatory masking or face coverings at this time. Now, understand I say mask, but I am just referring to face coverings. Absolutely, if you have some form of face covering that you make at home or whatever it may be that protects you and protects others, that's all I'm asking for. Now, let me give you some hard numbers, because I'm a numbers guy. I looked back, and on June the 6th, 30 days ago, Texas, and I'm going to miss this a little bit, but I'm not going to miss it much. You see how tough things are today in Texas, and you see a state that's reeling in every way. Big time problems. You see hospitals becoming overloaded. You see hospitals that are completely full and people with nowhere to go. You see an absolute catastrophe going on right in front of your eyes on Texas. Do you realize, West Virginia, that on 30 days ago, on June the 6th, 30 days ago, on a percentage of population basis, Texas had nearly less deaths on a percentage basis than West Virginia. Imagine. 30 days ago, Texas, the epicenter of where you see this situation, a disaster beyond belief happening, 30 days ago was either equal to or slightly better than West Virginia in regard to deaths per population. Now, the way I've done that, and I'm a little off on the math, I'm sure, but the way I've done that is Texas is roughly 20 times the size of West Virginia. At that point in time, at that time right there, West Virginia had about 85 or in the mid-80s on the number of deaths. Okay, if you multiply that times 20, you're going to come to a number that's slightly above 1,700, and on that date, Texas had 1,700 deaths. Now, we surely can't become Texas. But you see, we surely can become Texas. And we can become Texas very, very quickly. We're the most vulnerable. We're the oldest. We're the sickest. It is my job to protect you in every single way that I can. It's my job to lead to the economics, but it's my job to protect you. Now, what I am mandating today is I am signing an executive order today which requires all West Virginians aged 9 or above to wear a face covering at all confined indoor places provided social distancing cannot be maintained. And what I'm primarily referring to is just this. If you go to work and you go to work in a building, I expect you to wear a mask as you enter work. And then if you're working in an office and there's no one else in the office, or you're working in an area that is completely social distance, take your mask off. If you get up and go to the water cooler for a coffee break or whatever it may be, put your mask on. If you go into a retail store, I expect you to wear a mask. Now, I'm going to give you just a couple of statistics, and I want you to pay really, really close attention. If I keep saying to you over and over, which I wanted to do so badly, so badly, I wanted to say, just come on, West Virginia, come on. Wear your mask if you go outside. Wear your mask. You know, statistics show that if all I do in the wake of what is going on in our nation today, all I do is encourage you to do that, we will continue on an incline of cases at a rate of 84%. If I tell you that only employees at establishments to wear masks, and that's all we do today based on where we are today, we'll move on an incline of 70% of the people. If you wear masks when you go in a building and the employees are wearing a mask and the patrons are wearing a mask, we will drop from an 84 or 70% increase to an 11% decrease. West Virginia, understand just this. I have told you all along we were going to watch the numbers. Jordan, put our graphs up there just a second. In the last few days, our positive numbers in the last hours of the last days, our positive case numbers have now moved to a level in excess of 3.7%. And if I remember correctly, on one of those days over the weekend, we were in excess of 4%. West Virginia, we are absolutely in a situation to where we have got to make a move right now. If we don't make a move right now, and I know there's going to be pushback, and I know there's going to be people that are saying, well, I don't have to do that. I'm telling you, West Virginia, if we don't do that and do this now, we're going to be in a world of hurt. Now, I know it's an inconvenience, but it's not much of an inconvenience if you're going to go into a store and shop for 30 minutes, or you're going to go to a restaurant, wear your mask in, naturally take your mask off, have your meal. If you're going to a bar, wear your mask in. If once you get served and you're going to drink whatever it may be, take your mask off, put your mask back on. Absolutely, I know it's an inconvenience, but West Virginia, look around. Everywhere around us is breaking loose, and our numbers are showing our numbers to be moving in a significantly wrong way. We have got to move, and we've got to move now. So, effective tonight, at midnight tonight, this order will go into effect, effective tonight at midnight. Now, my counsel, Brian Abraham, will come up in just a second, and he will give you some stuff that people have brought up in regard to the wearing of face coverings and everything, and he'll do that in just a few minutes. I would say this to you. If you don't decide to wear the mask for yourself or the face covering, if you don't decide to wear it for one of your loved ones or your friends, do it for the 95 that have died. Do it for the 95 that we've lost. Because absolutely, West Virginia, you can continue to be the miracle. If we don't, the next thing that's right around the horizon is going to be we are going to have to pull back, and we're going to have to start shutting things back down. You know it's going to happen. You know that's going to happen. Absolutely, you have got to remember, West Virginia, we're the oldest. We're the most chronically ill. We're absolutely setting in the sweet spot that can cause more problems than you can ever imagine. We've got to move, and move now. Now, I'm going to defer to my general counsel, and he'll tell you just a little bit, and then I'll come back and finish up.
One of the issues that we've been tracking here since the governor commented on Thursday, and that is we've received some phone calls, citizens concerned about the ability to carry concealed firearms with a permit and at the same time wearing a mask. The Department of Homeland Security has put out through their legal counsel to our law enforcement agencies that there is the ability to have a concealed weapon and wear a face mask at the same time. There's specific West Virginia code provisions that allow the wearing of a mask during a civil emergency. The governor, in his executive order later today, will also declare that based on the civil emergency, there is no penalty for that provision of West Virginia code by wearing a mask while concealing a firearm. We would ask all West Virginians and urge you to check with other states before you would travel to other states and do the same thing, as each state's laws may be specific and might not be the same as West Virginians. But as far as West Virginia goes, there will be no prohibition on the wearing of a mask and the carrying of a concealed firearm at the same time.
Okay, let me just go through and finish up real quick. We've still got the issue in regard to the Myrtle Beach situation, and we got lots and lots and lots of cases there. You know, we would strongly urge those that have traveled, you know, any hotspot state or whatever to be tested. The more we're tested, the more we know. You know, from the standpoint of our jail updates, we have now nobody, not one single person in any of our jail or correctional facilities and everything that are active cases. We have free testing going on Friday and Saturday, July the 10th and the 11th in Mercer, Marshall, Monongalia, Preston, Upshur, and Wayne counties. And naturally, we urge all the citizens, especially our minorities, to go be tested. We've now sent out just under $30 million to our cities and our counties. We're trying to continue to pump that out just as fast as we possibly can, and we'll continue to do so. And we just need more and more and more applications, and so keep sending them. We're still continuing to feed our people, and our summer feeding program and everything, and our summer feeding maps are up there, and there's 690 sites. If you by chance can't figure out, you know, how and where you can get assistance, call 211. That's 211, and we'll get you the assistance you need. I'll remind you again about the census. And my last is just this. If you'll see this little mask that I've got right here, it's next to nothing, you know, and all in the world it takes this long, that long to put on. For crying out loud, and the inconvenience is next to nothing. Wear your mask. It's the only way we can stop this. Do you understand that really and truly our power to have stopped this from becoming a surge when we were worried about it overrunning our hospitals way back when, our power at that point in time was to stop the ability for it to jump from person to person. Our power stops this disease right in its tracks. Now, we don't like the mask deal. This isn't a forever thing. This isn't a right that's going to be taken away from you forevermore. This is something that is going to only bridge us and protect us until we get to a vaccine. The vaccine may be only a few months away. I'm telling you, point blank as point blank can be. Putting this little nothing on is a whole lot easier than standing over a casket with a loved one that's passed away. You can do this, West Virginia, and you can continue to be the miracle. And I surely know that this is not a popular thing in a lot of ways, but I'm going to do what the right thing is. Popular or not popular. I've told you all along I'm not a politician. I'm here to serve and protect you and do the very best job that I can do. I'll quit at that.
All right, thank you, Governor. Now let's go to Dr. Clay Marsh, our coronavirus czar.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. I want to expand the detail a little bit on the recommendations that we've made to the governor. We know that in West Virginia, the Kaiser Family Foundation marked us as the most vulnerable population. And through the great work of you and the governor's good care, along with other experts that we're working with, we have done quite well, even on national basis, related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had at one time one of the best scores on this reproductive rate, the R0, or that RT level, how fast the virus is spreading. We were around 0.6, which means that the virus was diminishing. Anything under 1 means the virus is diminishing. Anything over 1 means the virus is spreading. Today, we have the 7th highest RT level in the country at 1.27. And it's been increasing very consistently. And then over the last week or so, week to 10 days, it's really taken a sharp increase up. And as we look at that, we've also seen the number of positive cases in the state take a sharp increase up. And over the last 2 weeks or so, we've seen a total of about a 234% increase in the number of positive cases. And over the last 4 or 5 days, we've seen a 46% increase in the number of cases on a daily basis. So we have increased our number of cases to the highest amount that we've seen so far in the COVID pandemic that's been community-related spread, not congregate spread, not in the Huttonsville Correctional Facility, but in the community. And as we know, this spread can be a forebearer, can be a hint for us about things starting to increase in that exponential compounding way that we've talked about, how COVID can spread 1 person to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and eventually that can become thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. And we're seeing this around the country where the number of COVID positive people has reached all-time highs over consecutive days over the last week. And we see states, as the governor has outlined, like Texas, like Florida, like Arizona, who are starting to see all their hospital capacities start to go down as they're starting to experience the surge that New York City had experienced before. Now, interestingly, in West Virginia, as well as in the country, we're seeing younger and younger people getting infected. So again, US 4% of the international world population, 25% of the cases of COVID, and about 20% of the deaths. And even though younger people are getting infected, and they tend not to have as many hospitalizations, ICU stays, et cetera, we're still seeing young people get very sick and die of COVID. So as we're starting to look at what we need to do to recommend to the governor how we can support the health of our citizens the best, the governor has articulated a really important set of data, and this is from the National Governors Association, that states where there's no recommendation, no executive order at all, where we are working with the citizens in a cheerleading kind of way, they have on average seen an 85% increase in the number of COVID positive people. States that have very limited orders, where the employees alone are wearing masks, but people that are in businesses and indoor environments are not, by order, are seeing a 70% increase on average in the number of COVID positive people. But the states that have an order to require patrons and employees in indoor businesses and indoor environments to wear masks have seen an 11% decrease in the number of COVID positive people. So we want to make sure that we are protecting our very vulnerable population and protecting each person by doing the altruistic, courageous thing of wearing masks. Although I know a lot of people are quoting a lot of different resources. There was recently a meta-analysis in the great journal Lancet that looked at 197 different studies and found that wearing masks is the single most important thing that can be done to reduce the spread of these droplets that can infect people with COVID. And we know that a number of people, perhaps a majority of people, spread the virus before they know they have it, before they get symptoms in that pre-symptomatic phase. And we're seeing more people that are detected in West Virginia who don't have symptoms when we define that they are positive. So ultimately, as we look and try to identify the things to do, then we believe that masks provide us, or face coverings provide us, the best opportunity as we all try to wear these to protect each other from us who might be infected and not know it. And as we do this, we start to reduce the amount of virus droplet spread, which can happen from breathing, from talking, from singing, And we've talked about the choir practice in Washington State, where 56 of 62 people got infected by one person at a choir practice. And so this, to me, is a really important next step for us. And as the governor said, for many people, I know as well, people will be disappointed with this, won't be as happy. But ultimately, as West Virginians, we do understand community. We do understand service to others. We do understand helping support the vulnerable, the sick, the people at the highest risk. And that is really, to me, what we're doing. We have opportunity if people can't wear a face mask or it's found medically that they can. We have face shields, and we will certainly be happy to help people who need an alternative get that alternative, because we really just want to see West Virginians and West Virginia healthy. We want to protect our healthcare assets, and we know it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to see the total expression related to the level of illness. And so we're worried, as the governor said, that we don't become a place that starts to lose the healthcare resources, the beds, the ICU beds, the ventilator beds, like we saw in New York City or we saw in Italy. And that, to me, is our opportunity today. So we have the opportunity to cut this virus off at its knees, to reduce the person-to-person spread. Wear your mask. When you can physically distance, that's an additional benefit. So do both if you can. But certainly, we want people not to spread it. And remember, like Japan, the 3C areas are the most dangerous: closed indoor spaces, close constant contact with people that you don't live with, which is 15 minutes or more, 3 feet or less from people that you don't live with, and crowds. And those are the situations that masks make a lot of sense, as well as trying to physically distance. But in the indoor environments, as the National Governors Association has disclosed, states that go to this next step, when they're starting to see the spread is increasing more and more and more, are able to reduce that increase and then support those vital businesses, the economic sort of drivers, the jobs that we want to see people get, but also the things that people love to do together. So thank you, West Virginia. I know that you will be champions, as you've been so far. And although I know for some this is going to be an inconvenience, please stick together. Please support our vulnerable citizens, our healthcare workers, our first responders by wearing your mask. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Marsh. Next, we'll go to Major General Hoyer with the West Virginia National Guard.
Good afternoon. Focus this week on testing and other significant support. Today in Parkersburg, we are testing 100 personnel, individuals at a nursing home, also working the sanitization mission for local church soup kitchen to ensure that we continue to feed our vulnerable population. We will be focused the majority of this week on preparing for a significant number of testing lanes that are going on. As was mentioned on Friday, concerns about testing in Harrison County, where folks may have not been able to make it through the test lane. We're working with the local health officials as well, Bureau of Public Health, to make sure within the next 10 days we get additional testing in that area. Just want to highlight that this past weekend we had 130th Airlift Wing brought 70 personnel back home from overseas. One of the additional efforts we in West Virginia took was to test all 70 of our personnel before they returned home to make sure that their families were safe and protected. We'll continue to do that with all of our personnel as they return from mobilization. Had 60 personnel from the 104th Aviation Unit go out onto preparation for deployment. And I know, as others have pointed out, the governor's pointed out, many people will see the request and the requirement now for face coverings as an inconvenience. I just want to say on behalf of myself and the members of the National Guard on the front lines with our healthcare workers, our first responders, we would just ask that West Virginians step up and do this. We in the National Guard watch the numbers on behalf of the governor very closely in this event as well as other events like the water contamination and other things. And I believe you have confidence in us. We would not be asking for you to do this if we had not thought that our numbers that had been going so well were moving in the wrong direction. And we want to make sure West Virginia continues to lead the nation. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, General Hoyer. Secretary Bill Crouch from the West Virginia DHHR is also joining us today and is available for questions. Now we'll go to questions from media members. The first today is Kenny Bass with WCHS.
Hi, this is Kenny Bass with Channel 8 and Fox 11 in Charleston. Two things come to mind with the governor's order that's going to affect at midnight. One is enforcement. We've talked a lot about it. A significant number of people have said that they will not wear a mask. They're not going to wear a mask, and you can't make them wear a mask. So where are we on the enforcement scale? And for Dr. Marsh, knowing human nature, at least knowing Kenny Bass's nature, use a mask, put it in my pocket or put it in my car or put it in a bag and then pull it out and use the mask again the next day. Can you talk about the importance or the need for cleaning of cloth masks, and what advice would you give to people about keeping those masks clean as possible now that they've been mandated for use? Thank you.
Okay, Kenny, I think, I can, talk to the first point. First and foremost, everyone's got to understand that the last thing in the world that I wanted to do was come in front of you and mandate mask. But it's also the very thing that I want to do the most, because I know in my heart that if we don't, we're going to have funeral after funeral after funeral, and I know that this is the right thing to do. Now, as far as it being a criminal offense, if you choose not to wear a mask, well, there is no criminal offense. And as far as us hauling you off to jail, well, we're not going to haul you off to jail. But I ask you as West Virginians, I ask you to respect all the wishes of all those out there, and what is the downside? What could it possibly hurt? What could it hurt? That if we wore masks for 2 or 3 months and absolutely we continued to pitch the greatest numbers, and what if we found out at the end of that period that we didn't really need to wear the mask? What could it have hurt? At the end of the day, what's the downside? I know what the upside is if we don't wear the mask. I can see it already happening in the numbers right here. I can watch it on the TV everywhere. I know that experts tell me repeatedly that if we have 80% of our people are wearing masks, we have tremendous successes. So I would just tell you just this. Please take heed, West Virginia. If you don't take heed, we're going to have funeral after funeral. We may not be able to stop it anyway, but let's hope and pray that we will, because this is our power. This is our power to be able to stop it. But we've got to move, and we've got to move right now. Now, Dr. Marsh or someone else can answer the back half as far as the sterilizing of the mask and whatever, or the face coverings.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. I'll take that one on. So if people just wash the mask with soap and water, that's sufficient. Let the mask air dry. And again, it doesn't have to be a fancy mask. I mean, it's been demonstrated. Take a dish towel, fold it in half, fold it over so there's 4 layers, put a rubber band in the middle of it, put that on. That will actually work pretty well as a barrier to reduce the droplet formation. So it can be anything really that covers the nose and the mouth, and particularly if it has multiple layers. So it doesn't have to be anything too exotic. A washcloth, a dish towel can be used, a bandana. So having some extra, and then making sure that you're cleaning, soap and water, air drying the cloth masks that you use after each time you use it. And if you're not around a whole bunch of people, then you could potentially use it, more than once, but I wouldn't use it, more than a couple of days without washing it with soap and water.
All right, thank you, Kenny. Next, we'll go to Charles Young with WV News.
Hi, this is Charles Young with WV News. Governor, last week you said that you guys were going to leave it up to a lot of businesses to do the enforcement of this. Do you worry that by doing that, you're endangering the safety of minimum wage essential workers? We've seen in other states where people have been physically and verbally assaulted without some kind of other enforcement mechanism in place. Do we worry that we're putting these folks in danger? Thanks.
Well, Charles, I would say we worry about all folks that are in danger. We worry about any business that would be not conducting itself in following this mandate. I would welcome people to call, and I'm sure they'll call anyway, and tell us of situations where people are not following what we're doing here with this executive order. But Charles, I am confident in what we've already done in West Virginia. We would never have had these numbers. You'd never, ever would have had these numbers if West Virginians had not bought in and West Virginians had not understood wholeheartedly how much this means to each and every one of us. I've got to say just the same thing over and over. All of us feel somewhat invincible. All of us feel like this ain't going to happen to me. I'm okay. And even if I get this, I'm just going to get a little sick for a day or so and then I'll be fine. And if I get it, I'm not going to pass it on to grandma or grandpa. They're not going to get it. Or I'm not going to pass it on to a kid that just happened to have some of the different genes or whatever it may be that made this disease really, really difficult on that kid, if not impossible. But it happens. Do you realize, America, do you realize, West Virginia, that 130,000 people plus have now died in the United States? 130,000 plus. We've lost 95 in West Virginia. Absolutely, we're pitching a perfect game. Now, we've got to take the next step. And if we don't, we're going to endanger not only those that are on minimum wage and struggling and trying to do better in every way that we want to protect so much, because at times people can surely take advantage. But we want to protect us all. And at the same time, West Virginia, if we don't listen and we don't move right now, we're going to get in more trouble.
All right, thank you, Charles. Next, we'll go to Lacey Pearson with the Charleston Gazette-Mail. Looks like we're having a little trouble connecting. Next, we'll go to Steve Adams with Ogden Newspapers.
This is Steve Adams with Ogden Newspapers. In light of the mask order, and this might be more of a question for Dr. Marsh, I've read a couple articles this weekend specifically talking about where scientists have been trying to ask the World Health Organization to change how they categorize the spread. And I know that obviously they focus a little bit on the surfaces and things of that nature. The scientists are kind of pushing the whole idea that it's probably a little more airborne than what most people realize, and a lot of the spread is coming from indoors, particularly places with real bad air circulation and things of that nature. I didn't know if you had read any of those articles. New York Times had a piece on it this weekend, but I didn't know if that was sort of driving also the issue of having a mandatory mask order, particularly indoors, where we're all in close contact. you got air conditioning going and air circulation going that could spread these water droplets all over the place. Is that something that you all have taken into account when putting in this mandatory order? Thank you.
Dr. Marsh?
So thanks for your question. I know that the World Health Organization has really been struggling in many ways because of their reduction in numbers. I did read the New York Times article as well, where many of their consulting scientists have worked with the World Health Organization to try to help them move, into the droplet aerosol concern about spread of the novel coronavirus. And I think that this evolution of how the virus is transmitted mainly has gone through a number of iterations since its inception in December 2019. And initially, the concern was that it could be on solid surfaces and cardboard surfaces, and that maybe by transferring the virus from these surfaces to your nose, mouth, or eyes, that was the major reason why people got the novel coronavirus, and really induced the hand washing, hand hygiene, which is what we also were very much, articulating when this first started. I think as this has gone on, and particularly as has been demonstrated that there are pre-symptomatic or asymptomatic people that can spread, and this was another issue that I think the World Health Organization may be a little bit late to the party, but that in Germany particularly, they found that there was a lot of people that were spreading that were not symptomatic. And now it's recognized that that is a substantial way, and perhaps even the most important way, that this virus spreads. And so that as the virus spreads via airborne modes, whether it's droplets or maybe aerosolization, that it then becomes more incumbent to start to think about things that reduce the droplets and reduce the aerosols versus sort of things that can affect solid surfaces. So most other organizations, and WHO, World Health Organization, is going there now, have really turned from the you pick it up off of inanimate objects or surfaces to we spread it person to person by droplets and maybe by aerosolization. So one thing that the National Guard has done with us has really championed a deep cleaning mechanism for air handling units with the gaseous hydrogen peroxide, which then can start to enhance the cleanliness of the air and the environment. And certainly as we look at indoor places, particularly places where we've had a reported case of COVID, then doing these environmental decontaminations becomes very important. And that's something that we are paying a lot of attention to. But we know that wearing face coverings or masks and physically distancing and helping with the appropriate environmental cleaning of the area all work together. They don't work in parallel, they work in series. So they all benefit each other. And so we are moving forward with strategies to try to make indoor places as safe as possible.
All right, thank you, Steve. Next, we'll go to Paul Mullen with WCBC.
Good afternoon, Governor. Good afternoon, panel. This one is also for Dr. Marsh. I've been reading up on the G variant, the possible mutation. I want to know your thoughts about that, if that changes the game at all as we move into the fall. Could you give me your thoughts on that, Doctor?
Governor, you good for me to go?
Oh, yes, sir. Please.
So what you're referring to is a recently found mutation in one of the spike proteins. And remember, the way the virus works is the virus enters your body and then identifies a receptor that is usually on the airway cells, the nose cells, the back of the throat cells, and the airway cells, called the angiotensin converting enzyme receptor. And this spike protein mutation that you just referred to allows the virus to bind quicker and better to these receptors, which allows the virus to have a much better chance at lower concentrations with infecting people. So the infectivity of the virus goes up, which is a problem because as we see this great number of people now that are being infected, as we talked about, a quarter of the cases around the world are in the US, and we're setting records almost daily in this country for a number of positive viral cases, that this mutation allows the virus to become much more efficient in infecting new people. But that's the bad news. So more people will get infected by this mutation. The good news is that it doesn't seem that the virus, even though it's more infective, it doesn't seem that it's more severe. So the severity of the disease, even though more people can get infected, does not appear to be worse by this particular mutation. So yes, it is a problem because more and more people will be likely infected at a much lower dose of virus. The bad news. The good news is that it doesn't look like that this is a more severe strain of the virus related to those infected getting sicker or sicker.
All right, thank you, Paul. Next, we'll go back to Lacey Pearson with the Charleston Gazette-Mail. I think we have established a connection.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. So I want to circle back to the public testing sites. How is it determined where and when a testing site will take place? Is it population-based or is it based on positive cases? And how are we making sure that those testing sites are becoming available to people in maybe lower income communities, especially communities that don't have local hospitals?
Lacey, I'm going to let Secretary Crouch answer this. He can answer it better than I, but Secretary Crouch.
Yes, Governor, thank you. Thank you for that question, Lacey. We're doing a broad range of testing. Some of that is testing, surveillance type testing just through the drive-in lanes that the Guard is assisting us with, so that we're looking at a population in a community in terms of positivity and in terms of whether or not we have a problem there. Other testing is done, especially in our facility testing, where if we have a positive case, we move forward to try to make sure we test anyone and everyone that is contacted, or even the entire facility, to make sure that we tie off those contacts, those individuals that are positive. There is then contact tracing. We have about 225 contact tracers right now. We're looking to develop or put together online a system that we purchased several weeks ago that will allow us to increase the number of contact tracers to 350. So we're looking to bring that online next week because we are seeing more cases, as the governor said. So we're doing tracing on all positives. The congregate facilities, such as the Huttonsville outbreak, nursing home outbreaks, others, residential care facilities. We're trying to test everyone and make sure any contacts that lead to additional testing are done, and that individuals self-quarantine where needed to. So local health departments, I have to say, are doing a terrific job. This is, I have to say, difficult on all of our counties with regard to the number of staff that they have and the number of individuals that are out there on the front line. I appreciate what they do, and everyone appreciates what they do. We want to be a good partner with them, along with the Guard. So we work with them to do this testing. So we also have testing through the African American Task Force and minority testing that we're trying to target areas in the state where we think we can get a better idea of the percent positives for those populations. So we're doing that as well. So again, a broad range of testing all over the state. We're trying to constantly increase that testing. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you, Lacey. Next, we'll go to Anthony Izaguirre with the AP.
Governor, we've confirmed that at least 6 of your family companies received at least $6.3 million in federal coronavirus loans. Do you know what these loans were used for? And do you think it's fair for the state's richest man to receive these loans?
Anthony, I know that the loans, all businesses, I encouraged all businesses in our state, to try to seek anything and everything that they could possibly seek from the federal government in regards to loans. And as far as these loans would go, if in fact that number is correct, and I don't know that number is absolutely correct or not, But I can tell you this, that the way the loans work is the loans work in regard to be able to pay employees, and there had to be a certain percentage of those loans to be forgiven. Those loans had to be paid to a certain percentage of the loans. I think it started out 75%, now it's lowered to 60%. And that goes to employees or employee benefits. And with all that being said, you know, basically all that is just the same thing that's happened with the PPP to, I think in this state right now that we are approaching $2 billion that have come into our state through the PPP, and I welcome every dollar of it to come.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll go to Kimberly Keggy with WSAZ.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Kimberly Keggy here with WSAZ. I wanted to follow up, Governor, and kind of talk a little bit about the case count. You mentioned if the numbers do not decline, that we could see another state shutdown. So can you expand a little bit about what the criteria would be for that and when that could be possible again? Thank you.
Well, I think the question was, you know, we're going to watch the numbers and see at what point in time that we may have to shut down things within our state. Was that the question? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that we're a long ways from having to pull the plug and shut things down, provided that we get ahead of this and absolutely stay with our face coverings, and we're able to slow this growth down and maybe even reverse and go the other way. Now, let me just elaborate on this just 1 second, because I want you to understand that in the state of Texas, if 30 days ago the state of Texas was as good or better than us, and we think in West Virginia we've been unbelievable, do we not? 30 days ago, Texas was us. Why do we have the feeling that when everybody says that we're the most vulnerable of all, we're the sickest, we're the oldest, why do we have the confidence that we can't become Texas? That confidence is not smart. We should have concern. And we don't want to come anything close to being like Texas and the problems that they have today. But I want to do something with math again, and I want you to really pay close attention. If today in West Virginia we had 500 positive cases that were out there that we did not know were there, there were people that were walking around that had no clue that they were positive today. And you know that's perfectly possible. And we go 10 days without protective coverings, without some way wearing our mask or our face coverings, and we go 10 days, and just those 500 people infect more and more and more and more. And then all of a sudden the 500 are sick. And we know now 500 people are really sick. And they are putting a strain, maybe to some level, on our hospitals or our healthcare people. And we don't know the magnitude of the tsunami that's coming right behind them because of all that they infected. You see, that is exactly what has happened in Texas and Florida and South Carolina and Arizona. That is exactly what happened. They had people infected and they didn't do anything. And by the time those people really showed up with real symptoms and got sick, it was too late. It was too late and they were covered up. That's what we're trying to stop right there. The math is right in front of us. Everybody needs to just look at everything. Now, I would ask us as West Virginians again, what is the downside? Inconvenience? Maybe if you would just lay the macho aside just for a little bit, what is the downside? The downside is we are being told by experts The federal government, our medical centers, the televisions, our numbers, we're all being told the same thing. The killer is with us, and the killer is growing. And West Virginia, you have got to respond, and you've got to respond right now. If you don't, absolutely, we're going to have bad days in front of us. You've been the miracle. You've been the miracle. I ask you, please, please, bear through this inconvenience and continue to be the miracle.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. Next, we'll go to Dave Mistich with West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Hi, Governor. This one's for you as well as Dr. Marsh. I'm curious, one, what good this order is if there's no enforcement, there's no penalty. I mean, is that any different than the recommendation that you've been giving for months and months? And secondly, my question is, why was this order not issued ahead of the holiday weekend when we knew that a lot of people would be getting together face to face and gathering for the 4th of July?
Okay, I think I can answer them both, and then Dr. Marsh, you can jump in if you need to be. The first part is, if we come out out of the get-go and we start saying we're going to levy fines or we're going to do this or that and everything else, it just pushes us to be more divisive, more divided. I've got all the confidence in the world in West Virginia, and I've got all the confidence in the world that our businesses will encourage enforcement, and absolutely, I believe West Virginians will do a great, great job with just this. Now, the second part of your question, and tell me one more time the second part.
Just curious as to why you guys didn't go through with this ahead of the 4th of July weekend.
I got it now. Well, here's the thing. When all of a sudden the numbers, the experts, I told you the story about the doc from Johns Hopkins and everything, when all of the simulation of everything started looking like, because we've discussed this at several different briefings as have been brought up before, but as the possibility of going to mandatory mask, we've discussed it, but as the possibilities started kind of becoming ever so apparent that probably what we had to do, we really knew that at that point in time, especially with a lot of places being shut down and everything over the holidays and everything, we had to give some level of time. In addition to that, our hospital numbers still look great, and we're still in great shape there. And we really wanted to just continue through the holiday and just see what the numbers bared through the holiday. Well, you can see what the numbers bear. The numbers bear numbers like a daily number that we haven't seen forever. 3.76, 3.9, 4%. Boom, boom, boom. Right through the holiday. Now we know. Now we know. In West Virginia, you have tested more than 10% of your population, probably approaching 11% now. You've tested 187,464 people. It's giving us all the information we need. It's giving us the information to do exactly what we're doing right now.
All right, thank you, Dave. Next, we'll go to Taylor Stuck with the Herald-Dispatch.
Hi, all. It's Taylor with the Herald-Dispatch. Two things. I was wondering where you came up or how you decided that 9 years old was the age, like the lowest age for the mandate. And also, what are some conditions that a person could have that would prevent you from wearing a mask?
Okay, well, I'll jump in the beginning, and then maybe Dr. Marsh can go back to the conditions of the people that wouldn't be wearing a mask or would be wearing a face shield. looking at what all the other states are doing, basically here's what the deal is. You know, if you've got a 2-year-old or under, it's highly recommended not to wear a mask. And we're recommending not to wear masks there. If you're up to 9 years old, it's across the board. Most states are going to that because we all know that keeping a mask on a 7 or 8 year old kid is a difficult thing to do. And plus the fact that there's some level of psychological trauma or worry involved with that. And so just being able to explain as to what's going on there. But Dr. Marsh, maybe you could take over from the standpoint of people that had a breathing issue or whatever like that, from the standpoint of the mask.
Thank you. So we know that some people just, can't breathe well in mask, and those people might have pre-existing lung disease like asthma, or they may have acquired lung disease like COPD or other scar tissue in their lungs, etc. Or they may have heart disease where their heart is not pumping blood as well. So we want to make sure that we are, considering the needs of all of our public, and we still want people to be safe. So having face masks which cover your nose, your mouth, your eyes, and allows you to reduce that droplet spread if you are in an indoor environment with other people close by is certainly an approach that can work. Alternatively, people who may need to go to a restaurant or a store could certainly get takeout or even delivery, which may be an option, at least in some places in the state. And as the governor said to begin with, remember, for many interactions, outdoor, appropriately physically spaced, without a big crowd of people, then there's no mandate or need to absolutely wear masks. Much like parents with their children, some children might do well in a mask, and a parent might decide, I want my 7 or 8 year old to wear a mask, and other people might say, no, there's no way they can do that. So what we really are trying to do is not to do anything punitive and not to do anything that appears to restrict liberties. This is really about us committing to taking care of each other, because we know that by reducing the droplets that we generate when we breathe, when we talk, when we yell, when we sing, when we breathe hard around other people indoors, if we have the virus and don't know it, we can infect a lot of other people. Remember, in South Korea, one person led to the infection of 3,000. In Hong Kong, one person led to the infection of 300. In the Seattle choir concert, one person infected 56. So we know that people, even with the right intentions, can be infected and not know it and infect others. And that's really what we're trying to guard against.
All right, thank you, Taylor. We have time for one more. We'll go to David Beard with the Dominion Post.
Hi, this is David Beard. Governor elaborated broadly earlier on what it would take to issue a call for statewide rollbacks and shutdowns. Mon County from June 29th to July 5th had 106 positive cases associated with gyms and bars and restaurants. And next month we'll have 30,000 students coming to town. So I guess stemming from that, what would it take to allow local health departments or local county governments to mandate localized shutdowns rather than going statewide? That's it.
David, I'm going to pass to Dr. Marsh. I'm going to have one little comment and just say just this. We're watching Mon County. We're watching really close. We're really, really concerned about exactly what you just said. All these kids coming back and the situation that could explode from the standpoint of just the places that you referred to. And so, Dr. Marsh, maybe you could take over there because we've had a lot of discussion and Dr. Marsh is on top of it.
Well, I appreciate that, Governor. And David, thank you for your question. Certainly we work very, very close hand in glove with county health officers and our local health departments and leaders to understand what's going on the ground. And certainly Mon County is seeing a very rapid increase in the number of positive cases. And Lee Smith, who's the county health officer there, is really terrific. And we are working closely both at the state level and the university level with Dr. Smith and with the team at DHHR and at the local health department. And I think that, we are trying to evolve our strategies so that we are trying to, as the governor said, reduce the growth, the rate of spread, as we talked about when we first started with COVID, so that we don't see a surge, so that we can continue to flatten the curve. But as we look at special circumstances and counties that may have, the most activity, and we've talked about some of the border counties like Berkeley and Jefferson, some of the Ohio River counties. Certainly, we've looked at Kanawha County before, Cabell on the western side. So we know that ultimately we will have differences in different counties, and that need will be different, because of the plans, including the potential that the universities will start back again to open up the doors to thousands, tens of thousands of students. Some of those students who from out of state and maybe from areas of the country where COVID is more prevalent. So as we go, then those decisions will certainly be with the governor and with the governor's office. But we are constantly developing strategies so that we, as we talked about before, we don't want to just be the hammer. We want to be a scalpel. And that means working at local levels and county levels versus just the state level. And we are watching Mon County very, very closely with Dr. Smith, as well as other counties that are seeing more activity with those county health officers.
All right, thank you. Governor, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I've already been through this one time, but I want to go through it one more time. And, I just said just a second ago, I was talking to you about the math. I'm always hung up on the math. If you'll just stay right with me and just imagine this. Do you not believe that in the state of West Virginia today, right now, we've got 500, and we've probably got a lot more than this, but if we had 500 cases today that were in West Virginia, and they were walking around and they had this virus, but they hadn't gotten sick yet, but they were going to get sick. They weren't going to just stay asymptomatic, they were going to get sick. And we believe without any question we've got that, don't we? Now, if we could stop it, and I don't fantasize to say that we could completely stop all 500 of those, but let's just say, for instance, we could, by wearing our mask, we could do that. In 10 days or so, this 500 is going to show up at our hospitals. And it's going to be problematic. But let me tell you, what if we don't wear the mask? What if we don't? And we could have stopped that 500. On the best case scenario, surely every last one of us believes that these 500 people are going to come in contact with 30 people or more over a 10-day period. And if that be the case, in 10 days, we're going to have 15,000 people in West Virginia affected. If that be the case right there, our hospitals will be overrun. Everything in the world will come unraveled. Now, the reason I go through this math is to tell you exactly just this. This was Texas 30 days ago. This is what happened to Texas. And it's way worse than these numbers. We don't want to become Texas. We don't want, our hospitals could never stand it. We don't want to become Florida. Now, also I would add just this. We just had 60 people deploy in our National Guard and 70 people come home. I've said it over and over and over. You heard a plea from our general that said the National Guard is asking all of you, West Virginians, to wear your mask, to do exactly what we are mandating here by this executive order. These National Guard men and women, we should absolutely keep in our prayers. We should celebrate their deployment. We should celebrate them coming home. We should pray so much for their safety, and we should be so appreciative and thankful that they have given us everything we have. Now, before I sign off, I just say just this to you. The economies that have managed and won the war against this disease are the economies that thrive. We see it over and over and over. The economies that didn't manage it broke all to pieces. You saw it, West Virginia, with our economy right from day one. We survived. And not only did we survive, we absolutely showed the world again just how good you really are. Don't let all the good, please don't let all the good go down the drain over something as simple and small as just this. Just think, West Virginia, versus being shut down, schools closed, stay at home, all the home care, everything we've been through, just because of just something as simple as this. Something as simple and as quick as that. Come on, West Virginia. We need you. We need you again right now. Do your job. Thank you so much. And God bless each and every one of you.